see it's out tomorrow?
What's that?
I Kill Giants?
Oh no, it's out tomorrow?
Yeah,
Like in regular release?
yeah. Now, will it come anywhere near here?
I don't know.
Probably not,
Maybe El Paso.
but yeah, it was in the news, online newspapers this morning.
Cool, yeah, I definitely want to go see it after reading the book too.
Is the book good?
Hey, we should go have Rick.
Thank you for joining us. We've got a sign-in sheet right here. Well, we have quite a few more registered, but just in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, thank you all. Good afternoon. My name is Del Mackey. I'm a program specialist here at Arrowhead Center. Today we're going to talk about the SBIR program, the NFAS program, which helps small businesses apply for and hopefully secure SBIR funding, and have a special emphasis on NSF, the National Science Foundation, whose SBIR opportunity just opened up and will be due June 14th. So the first part of this program is going to be on what the SBIR and STTR programs actually are. So the mission of the SBIR program is to support scientific excellence and technological innovation through the investment of federal research funds and critical American priorities. Essentially, it's a way for the government to actually invest into business ideas, invest into innovation, invest into things that are going to continue to move forward the state of research and development. And so their goals are to meet the federal R&D needs, invest in private sector commercialization. So SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research. They are huge into commercialization. Every idea that gets funded under an SBIR, colloquially people refer to it as the SBIR program, but every idea that gets funded under a SBIR has to have commercial viability, whether you're selling it to an outside market or whether you're selling it actually to, so whether you're selling it to an outside market or whether you're selling it to the government itself, there has to be some commercial viability for it. Sorry, give me 1 second. Hear me. And so they have to stimulate technological innovation. So these are ideas that already either aren't out there or there's a brand new component that makes it unique, makes it viable. And also they put an emphasis on helping with socially and economically disadvantaged persons. They're typically referred to as historically underserved populations. There is no set-aside funding, but there are special mechanisms that you can qualify for, and we'll discuss that more in a little bit. So why does a business actually need SBIR funding? So the SBIR fund program and the STTR program are the government's venture capital program. It's a way for the government to actually invest into R&D, invest into innovation. One of the big things for business, though, is it's risk-free dollars. You're not really putting yourself out there. You don't have to worry about making investments, and you don't give up any equity position. The government doesn't want to stake in your business. They own enough crap out there as it is. They don't want to own anything else. And it's also great because you're not giving up a portion of your idea. Your company will actually retain the full data rights for the idea, and then they'll actually also retain IP. Because again, the government doesn't want to take your information, they don't want to take your IP. They got enough IP they can't manage as it is. And so they won't disclose data for at least 4 years after the full program completion. And what does that mean is, the data is essentially what did they fund. They don't go into the mechanisms of how your idea works, they don't like release the patents on it, they don't release documentation. Essentially it's just a database that says, hey, this is what we funded, this is what happened with it, you know, now there might be some interest in it. And what it means by the full program completion is, so once you are fully done with the SBIR program, so if you get a phase 1 and you never move on beyond that, 4 years after you complete the phase 1, you'll actually, they'll disclose the data. If you move on to a phase 2 though, 4 years after you complete that phase 2, anytime within that 4 years, if you get another award, like a phase 2 accompanying award or a phase 2B or anything like that, that resets that 4-year clock. So as long as you're still developing under the SBIR program on that same idea, it's constantly resetting that clock. So your 4 years gets extended to a lot longer than 4. And then for government agencies like the DoD and NASA, this is a priority position for sole source. Sole source, when you deal with an agency like DoD, so when they release a contract and opportunity, they have to release it out to the public and say, well, here's this contract and opportunity, we have to look at everybody that has something out there, and we're just taking applications at this point. When you sole source with the DoD though, that's a way for them to say, we don't need to look at the other stuff, we know that this is a valid idea, we want to fund it, and immediately give you money. And there's no black marks for up to a 75% failure rate. So if you get a phase 1 and it just doesn't work out, the feasibility isn't there, they're not going to blackball you until you hit that 75%, and then they're going to look real closely at everything else you ever submit. So it's about a $2.5 billion set aside annually for the SBIR program. And really what it is 3.2% of the extramural research budget for agencies with a budget greater than $100 million per year. So any agency that's dumping over $100 million per year into R&D dollars participates in the SBIR program. And to date, they've had about 160,000 awards. And when we talk about SBIR, you can't not talk about the STTR program. So the STTR program is a sister program to the SBIR, and the STTR is for a business to actually work with a research institution like a university, like a federal lab. There's a very specific list. And it's for not as many of the agencies participate because it is a larger pool of money. It's only for agencies with a budget greater than $1 billion per year for R&D. That mainly hits your big 5, NIH, DoD. There's a chart later on that talks about that. But it's a way for business and research institutions to actually collaborate together, to work together on an idea and then to actually push that forward. So what are the differences? So the SBIR is for small businesses. At least 67% of the work has to be done by the small business. It can be 100% of the work, it can be whatever percentage, but 67 as a minimum has to be done. And then up to 33% of that can be done by consultants, research institutions, other small businesses, but that's the sum total for the subawards. You can have a research institution, you can have another small business, you can have a large business all subbing to you. All 3 of those combined cannot equal more than 33% of the funding and 33% of the work. And when you submit, a formal intellectual property agreement isn't required because it may just be the business itself. So under the STTR, a minimum of 40% of the work has to be done by the business, a minimum of 30% of the work has to be done by the research institution, and at least 30% on the table that can be split up with either the research institution gets more, the small business gets more, or you bring in somebody else, another research institution, a large business, another small business. Somebody else can work on that. And that's just how they divvy up that money. So under the SBIR and STTR programs, you either have a grant or a contract. And that's pretty much with every federal agency. They either fund you through a grant or a contract. So grants are more flexible, they're more open. Those agencies that are granting agencies, like NSF, their topic areas will be extremely broad. Whereas somebody like DoD, who is actually a contracting agency because they're trying to fulfill a very specific need, trying to solve a very specific problem, they're not as flexible. Their scope of work will almost always be extremely defined because they have a problem out in the field and they go, oh God, we've got to solve this. How can we? They go out to the SBIR or STTR programs. And so here's the list. The interesting part is some of the agencies actually participate in both. They will have grant opportunities and they will have contract opportunities. HHS is going to be the biggest one, Health and Human Services. When you look them up, just easiest thing to do is look up NIH, National Institutes of Health. But they have a special, like almost shard of their SBIR program that looks specifically at contract opportunities. And under the contracts, your biggest funder is going to be DoD, of course. You know, the U.S. puts a lot of money into defense, like a lot. And then NASA is going to be your other one that does the bulk of it. And under the grants, NSF actually dumps the most money into the grants. And that is because they are so open with what they're looking for, which we'll kind of go over when we talk about NSF. But this is the structure of the SBIR and the STTR programs. They're called a three-phase program. So phase one is looking at the feasibility of your idea. It's essentially a way for you to go, I have this idea, I think it's innovative, and the government goes, oh, okay, well, let's actually explore that. Let's look at that. Let's do some research on it. And a phase one can be anywhere from 100K up to about 225K for over 6 to 12 months. Now, there's about a 15% success rate on submission. So you have about a 15% chance of winning when you submit. And then the phase two is the follow-on to that. So your phase two is, your phase one sets the feasibility and it says, I have this idea, I think it works, here's why it works, here's the research behind it. The agency goes, great, well now you can get a phase two because you have to have a phase one to get a phase two. Let's actually back that up. Most of the time, you have to have a phase one to get a phase two. Some of the agencies do have very, very specific programs for moving directly to a phase two. Generally, though, those are up to a congressional authority. Most of that congressional authority has lapsed, and they haven't actually reauthorized it. But under a phase two, that's where you go from the idea to an actual prototype. So I have this idea, I think it works, now I'm going to build something, now I'm going to test it, and to make sure it actually works out there in the field. And because you are actually building a prototype, it's more money. Usually it's about $500,000 to $1.5 million for over a 2-year period. You'll see what's interesting though is, of course that doesn't work on an LCD, I don't know why I did that. So phase twos have about a 45% success rate. And that is because the only way you get a phase two is if you have a phase one. Well, you have a phase one, it's probably going to be a success. You can move on to a phase two. And now they call the SBIR program and the STTR program a three-phase program. Phase three is all on your own. There is no direct funding under the SBIR or STTR programs for phase three because that's actually your commercialization. You have your prototype, now you have to scale it. Now you have to actually go out there and sell it. And again, whether it's to private business, whether it's to open market, whether it's to the government itself, there has to be some movement on that. There are external funds that are available, but that's seeking other grant or contract opportunities. And a lot of the agencies have companion programs, like a commercialization acceleration program under HHS that helps you move towards that, but technically those aren't part of the SBIR or STTR programs. Now, a proposal process. So, just like it's always said, there ain't no free rides, baby. You don't just get this money. You have to actually go through a process. You have to actually create a lot of documentation that says, this is my idea, this is why I think it's important, this is why I think it works, this is who I am, this is the tools I have available, these are my resources. Most proposal packages are anywhere between 15 to 25 pages, and a lot of it is extremely technical content, because you have to be able to convince that agency, I know what I'm talking about, I have all the latest information, I've been kept up to date, because again, they want innovative ideas. If the agency is doing a review and they know that you don't have the latest information, they're automatically going to go, well, they're not up to date, I don't know if they're that innovative. So generally what happens is the agency will release their solicitation topics, you'll get your proposal together, you'll submit it, there's an evaluation and a review process that each agency goes through, and each agency actually publishes their review criteria. So as you're creating your proposal, one of the biggest things you're going to want to do is make yourself aware of what that review criteria is. It's like when you get your, not your syllabus, but your grading rubric, when you're actually creating the paper. If you don't write against that grading rubric, you're probably going to fail that assignment. You want to do the same thing with the agencies, write towards what their review criteria is. You're trying to get an A there, and at that point, an A is getting money from them. And awards can't be accepted from different agencies for the same exact work. If you have a project that is equivalently related, then you will not get funded. And if you try to accept an award for the same exact one, you're going to be in trouble with the government. That's never fun. You're going to get audited and bad stuff's going to happen. So each agency has a mechanism that you have to go through to get this proposal in their hands. Some agencies, like IES, which is the Institute of Education Sciences, you're actually just emailing them a proposal package, NOAA as well. Some agencies, like NSF, have an entire website set up that you go through for any of their grant opportunities get submitted through there. And DoD actually has an entire SBIR and STTR specific submission site. However, your big three that everyone requires are your DUNS, your SAM, and your company registry. Your DUNS stands for Data Universal Number System Number. Don't ask me why it's repetitive there. But first you have to get your DUNS. You can actually just go to, I think it's DUNS.com, and get that number. It's free. It's actually really easy to create. It probably takes 10 minutes. But you have to have your DUNS before you get your SAM, which is System for Award Management. And that's just sam.gov. That one is a little bit more in-depth. It does require your DUNS number before you can fill out the application. That one can take anybody from anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, because they go into a lot of information about the entire setup of your business, the registry of your business, everything like that. And then the last one is the company registry. It's called your SBC Control ID from SBIR.gov. And that one is a lot less strenuous than a SAM. It's a lot more like the DUNS. It'll probably take you 15 minutes to do. But they're going to generate information to whatever's on file for your SAM. So it's almost that waterfall methodology. Get your DUNS, get your SAM, go to SBIR.gov. And then each agency will have their own specifics for registrations and other requirements. If you ever need assistance with actually moving through all these registrations or figuring out what's required, definitely reach out to us. We are here to help small businesses, because that's all we do. We try to help New Mexico-based small businesses win SBIR and STTR awards. This is just, everybody will get these slides too. We'll email them out to everyone that registered. So if you didn't register, make sure you sign up and make sure you went to the sign-in sheet so that we can actually track your email addresses. And even if you did register, please sign in so we have tracking. So the NMFAST program itself. So NMFAST is actually funded by the Small Business Administration, and that is to provide assistance to small businesses. FAST stands for Federal and State Technology Partnership Program. It's actually an SBA program that's available to all 50 states. It's a yearly solicitation. Currently, there's 21 winners, 16 state programs, and 5, they call them Small Business Technology Development Centers. But the entire goal of FAST is to strengthen the technological competitiveness of small businesses. Well, what's that mean to you? The entire goal of FAST is to help get SBIRs in people's hands. And it's tied usually to whatever state it's in. So whatever state it's in, it's usually a university that the FAST program is located at, or some sort of incubator, because that's where small businesses are going. They're actually trying to get help, they're trying to get development, they're trying to innovate. And these are the current sites. As you can see, the yellow dot in New Mexico is us. And then this is current as of this year. The FAST contracts, grants, whatever it actually is, run October through September. So we'll be up for renewal again in October, and these dots might shift. Between FY16 and FY17, most of the dots were the same. There were 5 shifts, I believe 5. But it's one of those cycles where, because they're trying to put money into so many rural states and so many states that don't have other assistance programs, if you do bad at getting SBIRs, you're probably going to be able to win an award. And these are the people that actually work for FAST. So Zeddy Sloan is based here in Las Cruces. She's actually the director of ATI, and she's the program manager. Put your hand down. Dana Catron is one of the program coordinators for FAST. She's based in Santa Fe, and she has a research and grant and technical writing expertise. We have a contractor up in Albuquerque, Krishnamurthy, who has a lot of experience in winning DoD SBIR awards, and that way we kind of split the state. I'm not having to drive all over the state and all over Kingdom Come. And then, of course, the program specialist for FAST is me. I live here, I work here, and I have business development experience, and also for gauging technological readiness of businesses. What TRL level are you at? Can you actually commercialize this? Is this innovative? And that's just experience from working for small startups that are trying to push forward innovative ideas. So what services do we offer? Well, one, we do workshops like this, and you come and you listen to me bore you for about an hour, and then you get to go home. We also do a monthly newsletter. In the monthly newsletter, we'll highlight things like what agencies are available, events that are coming up. Our new newsletter will go out April 1st, as long as that's a working day. And we talk about things like every year there's a SBIR Spring conference that people like to attend because it gives you face-to-face, one-on-one time with program managers. It's a great resource to make available. We talk about other state programs like the Innovation Voucher that's currently, it's always accepting applications. And they take an application, or they the submission window closes every second Friday of every month. But we also make SBIR and STTR resources. So we put together things like compliance matrices. Well, you ask, what's a compliance matrix? Compliance matrix is basically a step-by-step guide to how you need to write your proposal. What needs to go in what sections, what's required information, what's not required information. Because if you don't follow the requirements, if they want you to format text a very specific way, if they want you to use 10-point font and use 8, your proposal will get returned without review. Follow their instructions to the T. Anything that they have for an instruction is there for a reason. Don't discount it. And then things like checklists, which are just a real quick guide. Once you're pretty much done, use that. Make sure you have all your sections. Make sure you've worked through everything. And make sure that all the information is in there. Because the worst thing you can do is not have information included in your proposal, because then they're not considering that information. We have a video podcast series, which I'll actually show you our YouTube channel towards the end. Feel free to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We do podcast on each agency. There's 12 agencies that fund under the program, and each agency will actually talk about what are the required registrations, show you some of the registration process, show you some of the registration screens, talk about the topics that are normally under that agency, what do they fund, why do they fund it, and talk about the proposals. Because again, the proposals are always going to be your biggest thing. It's like writing a homework assignment or writing your midterm. Excuse me. We also offer proposal development assistance. So besides offering compliance matrices and checklists, we'll also do things like look them over, provide reviews, and we'll review your proposal for completeness. We can either go to one of our outside service providers to actually review your proposal, or we have in-house staff. It's like the old thing, what has two thumbs and reviews your proposals? This guy. But we tailor our services for each client. So based on your need and based on what is out there, based on what we have to do for you, we can actually work with you on development. The only thing we pretty much don't do is write your proposal. We just can't create the text. You're the inventor. You know your idea. You know why it's innovative. You know why somebody's interested in it. We can't communicate that because we don't know it. And then the other service we have is what we call a micro grant. Those are available based on funding, and they're ways to actually help new businesses with very specific problems as they're creating their proposal. Whether it's technical writing, whether it's review, whether it's editing, whether it's helping somebody get their budget together, whether it's helping them figure out their rates, if they need help moving through their registration processes, figuring out how to register. We have micro grants for that. So this is our impact map. As you can see, this is where we've either worked, we have partners, or we have clients. So we're pretty much scattered all throughout the state. The counties you see with no dot in them are pretty much there for a reason because there ain't nothing in that county. New Mexico is a sparse state in a lot of areas. But the micro grants are set up almost like that phase 0, that assistance program, that development program. How can we help you get the best and most comprehensive proposal package together that you can? And these are, again, some of the things that they can be used for. A big thing is Council on Patents and Technology Licensing. So if you think you have an idea that you need a patent, if you think you have an idea that needs to go through licensing, we can actually provide assistance with that. Well, we don't provide assistance, we provide money for people to provide you assistance. And the big thing about the micro grants is that you don't have to go out there and search for somebody to work for you on your micro grant. We have an entire network of service providers throughout New Mexico and actually beyond that we've negotiated rates with. You don't have to worry about paying the service provider. You don't have to worry about any of that. Arrowhead Center actually, and NFS, pays the service provider directly. And we set up the scope of work. We set up what that $650 does. And you can qualify for up to 2 $650 awards. The real only qualification that is there is you can't have won an SBIR, STTR award within the past 2 years. Because at that point, somebody's already been invested in you. You know the process. You don't really need assistance moving through the process. So kind of in summary, what does NMFAS do? Well, we interview interested New Mexico for-profit small businesses to see if they're a fit for the services, to see if we can actually make them a client. We assist in identifying appropriate topic areas. So again, each agency has their own things that they fund. Each agency has their own topic areas. If you have an idea and you go, well, I think this is innovative, I just don't know what it fits under, contact us. We'll actually go through all the agencies, we'll go through the history of what they funded, see who's most applicable that might be able to fund your innovative idea. We provide the how-to information on agency registrations, electronic proposal submission, proposal packages, any portion of your proposal that you need to figure out how to do and you're just stuck, give us a call. We can always assist you. And again, we guide in proposal preparation. We assess the technical objectives. So because these are very technical proposal packages you're putting together for innovative ideas, they like a lot of technical information. You don't want to be too technical though, because then you can actually lose who is the reviewer. Because a lot of agencies use outside reviewers. So they'll try to use subject matter experts. A lot of times though, they may not have a subject matter expert for that idea, so they'll go out to just somebody that they know that has expertise. So if you write extremely technical information about the way a new GPS sensor works, and somebody was in bovine genomics, they're not going to understand what you're putting in there. But you have to make sure you have some sort of technical information. And then we review proposal drafts. We'll actually give you feedback. Well, one of the things that we can do is as you create different sections, because almost every proposal is broken out into sections, as you create different sections, you can send them to us. We can review them individually, or you can send us your entire package. Just don't send me your entire package about an hour before it's due, because I can't get through that, and you're not going to get good and reliable feedback. We kind of always ask for it about a week in advance, even if it's 4 or 5 days. We can still work with that. You may get a little bit hurried advice, and it may take you a little bit longer to try and integrate that advice. Because essentially that's what you're doing, is making sure that everything's in there and making sure that everything aligns. If we give you feedback that you've waited too long and can't actually integrate that feedback, then what was the point of us reviewing it for you? And again, we offer microgrants for new awardees up to $650 for 2 of them. So NSF stands for National Science Foundation. And NSF participates in both the SBIR and STTR programs. And NSF has one of the broadest mission statements under the SBIR program or the STTR program, or both, however you want to take that. Because really, they'll fund anything related to science, they'll fund anything related to research, except for drug discovery. If you're trying to make a new strain of penicillin, NSF is probably not going to fund you. However, if you have anything from, like if you have a new way to monitor undulations in the Earth's crust, they'll probably be interested. If you have a new chemical process for batteries, they'll probably be interested. If you have a new ceramic material that stands up to heat, they'll probably be interested, because they're interested in pushing forward the state of science and technology across the entire U.S. So they want those research and development. And even though they don't, they kind of shy away from the medical sciences. It's really just for drug discovery. They'll still fund biomedical technologies and things like smart health technologies. But all they're trying to do is to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare. So get science out there, make sure that the U.S. is always at the bleeding edge and the leading edge of science and research for the entire globe. It's kind of that whole feel-good thing. We're beating everybody. So NSF wants to help that. And really their program goals are discovery, learning, research infrastructure, and stewardship. They want to get stuff out there. They want to make sure that we're always innovating, that we're always out, kind of first out there. So under the SBIR and the STTR program, NSF actually funds twice a year. A lot of the programs fund once a year. DoD funds 3 times a year. HHS funds 3 times a year. And NSF has 2 cycles. One that happens, well, now, they're open, and then they'll close in June. And then the second cycle, I believe, will open in October and close in December. And actually, while we're talking about that, so some of the handouts that were on your chairs. First, this is just a flyer on NFast. I covered all the info, so there's nothing really on there that's unique beyond the presentation. This is our solicitation card. This actually gives you the due dates and the open dates for every agency that funds under the SBIR and STTR programs. This is kind of your cheat sheet. You can look at this and go, it's October, who has open or who probably has an open opportunity I may be able to go after. And then this is our evaluation form. If you could please fill out the evaluation. Always appreciate that. And when you work with us, this is really just the kind of workflow. We pulled that out of our presentations because it's a lot easier to see on a piece of paper, but it's how we process, or it's our process for working with clients, what we do, how we do it, why we do it. So, again, as you can see by the solicitation card, NSF funds twice a year. After you submit, their merit review happens about 1 to 3 months after submission. They'll start to make notifications about 4 to 5 months, and then you'll get the funding generally within 6 months. And so your period of performance will last 6 to 12 months. So when it says that you'll get your funding, that means with the SBIR and STTR programs, you either will bill on a monthly cycle, you'll bill on a quarterly cycle, or they'll just give you a lump sum. A lot of them you'll bill actually on a monthly cycle, and they will just pay you for charges and arrears. So for a lot of small businesses, they have to understand that even though these programs are great, you have to take in the charge, and you have to take in a debit before they'll actually give you money back against the charge. And then phase 2 is to actually have a fixed submission, either 8, 14, or 20 months after the start of your phase 1 award, because they want you working towards that phase 2. They want to make sure that you've hit all the milestones, that you've been able to complete everything that's required, and now you just get your phase 2 together. But one of the biggest things that they require in their review criteria is that the idea has to have a lot of technical risk. It has to be either burdensome or it has to be unwieldy for the small business to try and fund it themselves. You can't really go to a VC and they go, this is the greatest idea in the world, I'm going to give you $8 million. It has to be so leading edge that you're going to have to do a lot of convincing for someone to give you money. That's what they're really interested in funding, because they want to be that, bleeding edge innovation. And their 3 biggest criteria for funding are intellectual merit, so it has to be interesting, has to be unique, there has to actually be intellect behind it. Broader impacts, what is this going to lead to? Are there greater societal benefits from your idea? And then commercialization potential. Again, this has to be something that you can theoretically sell down the road. If it's something you're never going to be able to sell, pretty much no agency is actually going to be interested in funding it. So with the NSF proposal package, there's a few requirements. One is the proposal package is electronically submitted through a website called Fastlane. NSF uses Fastlane for every single proposal submission. It's not just SBIR specific. So when you go to Fastlane, there's going to be some very strange boxes that show up that you have to just ignore. And all that information will actually be in the solicitation. Again, when you read through the solicitation, just make sure you're paying attention to it. Make sure you're reading all the instructions. But like most other agencies, they have very strict requirements on formatting, length, and the actual content that goes into it. And this is under NSF, but it's for every agency. So every agency, when they have a section like a commercialization plan, or facilities and equipment, or bio sketches, and they have a heading for that section, use that same exact heading. It's just a lot easier for them to find that information and verify that that information is in there, and to verify you have what's required. They're not going to ding against you unless they say to specifically use that heading, but I have been in that situation before, not under an SBIR, but under a different grant opportunity, where we didn't head out the information, and we got back the reviewer comments that we were missing items that were clearly in there. So that's also one of the worst things you can do. Just make it as easy for them to read through your proposal package as possible. Because it's like anything else, if you don't engage them within the first page, they're not going to work through the other 14 pages. It's like a book. If you get a terrible book, you're not going to read 300 pages of just crap if you can't even make it through the first page. And really just be succinct. You don't have to, if they give you 15 pages for your proposal package, but you have all your information and you hit all the milestones and requirements within 14, don't fill up a page with random text just so you can have that 15 pages. Make it as easy for them to read as possible, because a lot of these reviewers are going to be reviewing 15 to 20 proposal packages, anywhere from 15 to 25 pages. If yours is at the bottom of their stack, you don't want them to be sitting there at 10 o'clock at night trying to get through a proposal that they just can't get through because you put a lot of jargon in there just to take up space. But the technical proposal of the NSF package, again, follow all the guidance on the requirements, including the sections, and you have to present evidence that the proposed technology is innovative. So you have to convince them that I know what I'm talking about, this is innovative, this is out there, nobody else is going to fund this, I need you to give me money. Because you have to convince them also that you have the necessary expertise, resources, and support to get the idea to market. And whether those resources are actually through a subcontract that you set up with a research institution like NMSU or somebody else, or you're hiring additional people, or you have the knowledge in-house, they need to make sure that they're not going to give you money and you just can't get the resource and support network that you need to. You almost have to have that either already in place or a really good game plan for how you move that into place. And you just have to present a compelling case. So convince them, make sure they understand, make sure they know that you know what you're talking about, make sure the idea is valid, make sure it's feasible, because it has to significantly advance the readiness of technology. And it has to be commercializable. NSF is pretty big on the commercialization plan. They want to make sure that they're dumping money into stuff that will make it to market. So when we talked about proposal content itself, the very first one is a one-pager that covers intellectual merit and broader impact. These are all in the solicitation, and we can help set you up with some small-scale templates that'll help you create these forms. And then your 15-pager covers really 5 seconds, or seconds, geez, 5 sections. Your elevator pitch, why should they care? So your elevator pitch is just like with a elevator pitch for financing. If you got 30 seconds in an elevator to explain to somebody with money why they need to give you some of that money, you better make sure that you can explain that. Your elevator pitch is actually limited to 1 page within your proposal. The commercial opportunity, is your product actually sellable? Why is it sellable? What's the market that you're going to sell it to? How is this going to help drive the state of your business? How is it going to actually make more businesses out there? And then, of course, the innovation. Why should they put money into what your idea is? Why is it unique? Why does it matter? Why does your idea actually need to come to market? What is a compelling reason for it? The company and the team, why do you think you're qualified? Why do you think you have the knowledge? Why do you think you have the know-how? Why do you think you've pulled together the people that can get this feasibility done, that can get this prototype done, can get this commercialization done? And the technical discussion. The technical discussion is a minimum of 5 pages in NSF and a maximum of 7 pages. Really with NSF, this is the bulk of your proposal because it's the nitty-gritty. It gets into, well, what's your project plan? What are your milestones? What is your timeline? What are you actually going to accomplish? What are your objectives? How can you move this project forward? What are your steps going to be to move the project forward? And what else do you need possibly to help move it forward? For the budget for NSF, they are one of the top funders. It's $225,000 for 6 to 12 months for phase 1. And that has to be broken down into very specific categories like people, your overhead rates, which a lot of people don't ever know how to make an overhead rate. We can match you with a microgrant for a service provider that can help you develop that. Because it's things like, well, I use this much space every month. Well, I can put a portion of my rent towards overhead. Or I have, these expenses each month that just help me do business. And it's like, well, that's part of your G&A. And there's going to be sections in the budget for each of those. And then the budget justification. You have to justify why you need the money in those very specific areas. If you put all $225,000 into one person's salary, you better make sure that NSF thinks that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And that's where you do it, is the budget justification. And then there's other supplemental documents like a data management plan and things like that, which really just says, I expect that data is going to be created. I know that y'all are going to need the data. Here's how I'm going to make sure that you have the data available to you and you can access it. So when we talk about things that NSF has funded in their portfolio, I'm sure everybody that's been to Walmart has seen one of these. If you haven't been to Walmart, then good for you. You live a lot higher on the hog than I am. But, so they have the Eco ATM. This was actually an NSF-funded idea. It's a self-serve automated kiosk where you sell your electronics back to somebody. And you put it in there, you put what it is, it'll actually drop it into a repository, make sure it works, make sure that it's not cracked, make sure that it's recoverable. They went through a phase 1 feasibility to see if people were even interested in it, and then for their phase 2, they actually helped refine their model. They expanded the library of things that they could take in. They expanded how they inspected each of the devices. An interesting thing with this is in 5 days, it collects enough e-waste to offset its own annual energy consumption. And these are scattered all throughout the country. By 2017, they recycled over 14 million devices, which was 1,000 pounds of gold, 11,000 pounds of silver, and 494,000 pounds of copper. These are all the precious metals and all the rare earth metals that are in things like, just in your cell phone. And that's all they were set up to do. And NSF was interested, and they said, well, you know, we need more rare earth materials, we need material extraction. Let's get you a SBIR. Anybody use Spotify? So the technology behind Spotify was a SBIR award with NSF. It's called the Echo Nest Corporation. And it was a award to actually go through data mining and machine learning to predict preference, taste, and sentiment for different kinds of media. So they did it not only for music, they did it for video, they did it for things like podcasts, they did it for books, anything that people were tracking and looking at. And they came up and said, well, you know, this is great for music. We can actually figure out what somebody's interested in based on how they interact with the medium, how they interact with the media, how they're actually looking at it, how long they're viewing it. And it's the technology that drives the similar artist and automatic playlist matching in Spotify and a number of other companies that are licensing this technology. But this was all an NSF SBIR award. Somebody came to them with an idea, but the humanities idea. How can we see how people interact with content? How can we see how they're interested in ideas? How can we see how how can we gauge their interest with things that we're showing them? And NSF said, that's pretty interesting. Let's see if we can fund you. You know, now they're a multi-million-dollar company because Spotify was like, oh yeah, well, we need that. I think they're actually owned by Spotify at this point. So what resources are out there and available to help you put your SBIR package together? Well, NSF has their own resources. NSF does a rotating library of webinars. Their first webinars for this release is scheduled for March 27th. And then they'll have webinars about every 2 weeks where I believe their webinars are an hour and a half. They may be an hour. But they'll move you through a very specific portion of their submission. They'll move you very specifically through, okay, well, how do I get my Fastlane registration? Or, well, what's a good elevator pitch? Or, how do I need to look at commercialization? And those are available through their website. If you want SBIR information, don't go just to nsf.gov. Go to seedfund.nsf.gov. They like to call the program America's Seed Fund because it is one of the largest funders for innovation and for small businesses in the country. And a big thing on their website, seedfund.nsf.gov, is where they have all the resources. A Fastlane guide. It shows you actually how to navigate through the Fastlane system. You may think, well, I can figure out how to navigate a website. No, view this guide. Fastlane is not good. It's an interesting product, and it's very kind of counterintuitive at times because they do all their grant opportunities through there. So there's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff that is just not applicable. So go through that guide. It does have screenshots, and we'll actually show the guide shortly. And then, of course, NFast has resources. I already talked briefly about the compliance matrix and the checklist. We have them for NSF. Each time a solicitation is released, we actually go through, we update our documentation, make sure there's no changed information, because we don't want to give you bad info, because then you're going to be mad at me and calling me and emailing me. And we have them for every single agency that is out there. So we're looking at them, we look actually through the proposal, we go through the solicitation and say, all right, these are the sections you have to have, this is what has to go in the section, this is the formatting requirements. Again, they're kind of your one-stop shop and your guide. Just move through the compliance matrix, move through the checklist, you'll have a great proposal at the end. We have our newsletter, which we already mentioned. You can sign up for that on our website. I should have had a link to the website on here. But arrowheadcenter.nmsu.edu/nmfast. It's also on all of the promotional materials I gave you in some form or fashion. And then one of the other things that we have is our YouTube channel. So with our YouTube channel, again, we release videos on a pretty constant basis. So not only do we have videos and playlists that we're developing for each agency, but we also have some for just very general topics about the SBIR and STTR programs.
Welcome to another edition of FastCast. On this episode, we will
Like
be
this one that
asking,
talks
should
about
you
why should
pursue an
you actually
SBIR
pursue an SBIR and STTR award? Why does this matter to small businesses? What is actually innovative? Is your technology ready for an SBIR? We go through all of those. Because we don't have enough subscribers yet, we don't have a very custom URL, I would highly recommend that rather than me try to give you a 30-digit URL, go to YouTube and search for NMFast, 2 words, and you'll find us. And then on our website, we post all of our information. So this is where you can sign up for the newsletter. This is where we have all of our previous podcasts where we would highlight other agencies, highlight different opportunities. And this is also where you can download our compliance matrices and our checklist. Again, for every agency, we update these when new information hits the street. And now to show you what Fastlane looks like. So this is the screen that's greeted you when you go to Fastlane. As you notice, there's nowhere to log in on the very front page, which can kind of confuse people. You have to actually go to Proposals. And then from here, you have your login. But even once you log in, so when you get your proposal together, and this is why I highly recommend following the Fastlane guide that's on their website, because even once you get into the system, there's still a lot of counterintuitive information. But you have to go into your proposal functions, and this is where you find your different sections, because then you go into your proposal preparation. I shouldn't be broadcasting my cell phone number, whatever. As you move through these different sections, there's a lot of stuff that you have to do beforehand, before you can move through some other ones. Like your budget won't populate with people you can put in it until you actually put them as a PI, co-PI, or a senior personnel. We have a video actually about moving through this process. It's on our YouTube channel. I think it's actually NSF Proposal Creation, where I show you how to move through a bunch of the different sections where you find information, because there will be call outs in your proposal solicitation where you go, I don't know what this is talking about. Well, it's going to be a form buried in Fastlane. So just to make people aware of that. But again, FAST is here to help you. If you're a small business, if you are thinking about getting a small business together, if you have an innovative idea, if you want to move technology forward, let us know. We'll try and find you a SBIR opportunity. We'll help you develop your proposal package. We'll actually provide reviews. We'll make sure that your information is as concrete as possible before it gets into an agency's hands. So that actually gives us a few minutes for questions and answers.